Arlington families and APS students. Welcome to At Home with APS. We are so happy you've joined us this week, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Mosley and I'm a reading specialist at Dr. Charles R. Drew Elementary School. And today we're going to be doing some phonemic awareness activities. To do these activities, you don't need anything. All you need is your voice and your hands. Let's get started. So to begin, we're going to start by blending multisyllabic words. Watch me do this first and then you'll join in. So to blend, I'll be chopping words and then putting them together. Discover. Discover. Now it's your turn to join me. Telescope. Your turn.
Telescope. Telescope.
Good job. Operate.
Operate. Operate.
Good work. Subtraction.
Subtraction. Subtraction.
Good job blending. Submarine.
Submarine. Submarine.
Oh, let's give that one another try. Submarine.
Submarine. Submarine.
Introduce.
Introduce. Introduce.
Good work. Alphabet.
Alphabet. Alphabet.
Good job blending sounds. Now it's going to be your job to segment the sounds or take them apart. Watch me do this first one. Permission. 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 Now it's your turn. Volcano.
Volcano. Volcano. Volcano.
Good work. Computer.
Computer. Computer. Computer.
Continue.
Continue. Continue. Continue.
Outrageous.
Outrageous. Outrageous. Outrageous.
Good work. That's a hard one. Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Tomatoes. Tomatoes.
Calendar.
Calendar. Calendar. Calendar.
Good job blending and segmenting. Now we're going to be taking a word and adding something to it to make a new word. Watch me do this first. Lend, and then you'll say lend, and I'll say put a B in front, and we have blend. All right, now you're going to try it. So our first word is lake.
Lake.
Put a F in front, and you have
Flake.
good job. Resident.
Resident.
Put a P in front, and you have
President.
late.
Late.
Put a S in front, and you have
Slate.
kin.
Kin.
Put a S in front, and you have
Skin.
good job adding a sound to make a new word. So now we're going to try that same activity, but this time I'm going to take a sound away from the front. Watch me as I do it first. Black, take the B away, and you have lack. All right, now join me. Clap,
Clap.
take the K away, and you have
Lap.
good. Dream,
Dream.
take the D away, and you have
Ream.
good. Praise,
Praise.
take the P away, and you have
Raise.
good work. Space,
Space.
take the S away, and you have,
Case.
oh, let's try that one more time. Space,
Space.
take the S away, and you have
Place. Pace.
pace. Good job. Thank you so much for joining me today to do some phonemic awareness activities. You can practice these skills by thinking about objects around your house. Good job, and hope you have a great day.
Hi everyone, my name's Miss Harvey and I'm a second grade teacher from Taylor Elementary. I'm so excited to be back again this week reading another story with you. The title of our text this week is Memorial Day. This is a fiction text, but it's a special kind of fiction text. Memorial Day is realistic fiction. Remember, fiction means it's a made-up story from the author's mind, and realistic means that although it's made up, what happens in the story could actually happen in real life. Have you heard of the holiday Memorial Day? If you have, maybe you even know that it's coming up next Monday, May 25th. When most boys and girls think about Memorial Day, they think about barbecues, swimming pools opening, and they remember that summer is just around the corner. But Memorial Day really means a whole lot more. In this story today, a boy named Kyle goes to visit his grandmother in her small town outside the city. While he's there, he learns a lot about what life is like in a small town on Memorial Day weekend. But he also learns something much more important. Kyle learns about the true meaning of Memorial Day and how people observe this holiday in the United States and in other countries. While we read today, I want you to be thinking, what does Kyle learn about the true meaning of the Memorial Day holiday?
Memorial Day, written by Anne Weil. Memorial Day. Kyle, we'll stop at the post office on our way into town. Did you put on sunblock? Grandma asked. Yes, Grandma, I did, he answered. It was only 10 o'clock, but the sun felt hot on his back. It was the last Saturday in May, and Kyle was ready for summer. I marked this place with a smiley face because I had a connection to this part in the story. I know that this is how I also start to feel when the weather warms up. Just like Kyle's ready for summer, when there's a nice warm day, it makes me feel ready for summer too. What about you? His grandparents' small town was so different from the city. Kyle loved the old buildings here. He was glad when his parents told him he would be spending the long Memorial Day holiday weekend here with his grandmother. The short walk to the post office took longer than Kyle had expected. It seemed like everyone in this town knew each other. You couldn't walk past someone without saying hello or swapping news. I'm going to stop right here because I think Kyle's starting to notice some of the differences between life in the city where he lives and life in his grandparents' small town. What do you think some of the differences are that Kyle is starting to notice? I remember that Kyle loved the old buildings where his grandparents live in his small town. And Kyle also seems surprised here that as they're walking down the street, they keep running into people they know. See you at the parade, people said with a friendly wave. This was the first Kyle had heard about a parade. What parade? He asked Grandma. He sounds interested. He sounds excited. The Memorial Day parade, of course. This is Memorial Day weekend, you know, she said. Kyle knew this 3-day weekend was special. The town pool opened this weekend, but he didn't know there would be a parade. You have a parade for the beginning of summer? Not exactly, said Grandma as she dropped a few letters in the mailbox. Haven't you ever been to a Memorial Day parade? She asked. Kyle shook his head. There were many parades in the big city where he lived with his parents, but they never went to them. His parents usually worked on holidays. He saw a Thanksgiving Day parade on television once. He hoped that there would be big balloons at this parade too. Maybe he would meet other kids there. I stopped at this spot in the story because I was thinking, if the Memorial Day parade isn't about the beginning of summer, well then, what is it about? What do you think it might be about? Let's keep reading and find out. Memorial Day means more than the start of summer fun, Grandma explained. It's a time to remember. Ooh, it looks like this part's going to be important, so I'm going to mark it with a star so that I can remember and come back to it if I need to. It's a time to remember. She stopped without finishing her sentence. Come, I'll show you. We'll go to the cemetery. Grandma turned and walked briskly, that means she walked quickly, in the opposite direction. We're going where? Kyle asked, quickening his pace to keep up with his grandmother. Kyle had never set foot in a cemetery before. He imagined a creepy place. But the town cemetery wasn't at all creepy. Kyle thought it was actually very nice, especially with all the flowers and flags. Does the photograph of the cemetery on this page look like cemeteries that you picture when you think about them? This photograph really does make it look like a very pleasant and nice place. As they walked, Kyle noticed that other people were there. He saw young families standing by headstones and a woman his grandmother's age. He saw a soldier in uniform. Then he saw a troop of Boy Scouts had gathered at the far end of the cemetery. What are they doing? He asked Grandma. Then he realized that they were the ones putting out the flags. The flags mark the graves of those who served in all branches of our armed forces, explained Grandma. It's part of our Memorial Day tradition to honor soldiers buried here, to remember them. Ooh, I marked this place with a star also because I remembered that Kyle was going to be learning about the real meaning of the Memorial Day holiday, and this part looks important in helping us realize what Kyle learns. Kyle remembered his teacher talking about the Revolutionary War. That was a long time ago. He knew that the United States had fought many wars since then. Was there always a Memorial Day? He asked Grandma. The chart at the bottom of the page shows us a list of the wars that the United States has been in and the approximate number of U.S. military battle deaths. These are the men and women who we honor and remember every year on Memorial Day for their service. At first, it was called Decoration Day. You know, decoration can mean a medal or award to honor bravery in battle, Grandma continued. They had stopped in front of a grave with a flag next to it, and Kyle read the inscription. This soldier was only 19 years old, Grandma. That's my cousin Ken's age. Kyle suddenly felt sad. His grandmother noticed his mood changed. Yes, it can be a solemn occasion for many people, she said. Solemn. This bold word is a new word for me. But if I use the clues and think about what's happening right now in the text, I know that Kyle suddenly felt sad when he realized that one of the soldiers was only 19 years old when he died. I think that solemn means sad. Yes, it can be a sad occasion for many people, she said. Sad makes sense in place of the word solemn, so I think solemn means sad. As they walked back to the house, Grandma told him that many countries have different days set aside to honor lost soldiers. In England, it's called Poppy Day, Grandma explained. Poppies are red flowers that became a symbol for Memorial Day there. Back at the house, Kyle used the internet to discover more about Memorial Day. He read General John A. Logan's Memorial Day Order, made in 1868, 3 years after the end of the Civil War. This was the official beginning of the Memorial Day tradition in America. It became a federal holiday in 1971. By the morning of the parade, Kyle felt like a Memorial Day expert. Did you know they have a Memorial Day in Australia too? Kyle said as he dug into the pancakes his grandmother had made for breakfast. There, it's called Anzac Day. Anzac stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, he explained. I decided to stop here because I remember before we started reading, we knew that we were going to learn about the true meaning of the Memorial Day holiday and also how it's observed in the United States and in other countries. So when I think back about what I've read so far, well, Kyle learned that in England, they celebrate Poppy Day. And in America, Memorial Day became a federal holiday in 1971. And now he's also learned that in Australia, they observe Anzac Day. Kyle and his grandmother had found a shady spot to watch the parade. You can watch the parade with me, or you can ride on that old fire truck and be in it, his grandmother said. Wow, thanks, Grandma, Kyle said as he ran toward the truck. Kyle knew that this was a solemn occasion, but parades were for fun too. At the end of the text, you can find the glossary. The glossary gives us the definition of the key or important words in the story. The definition tells us what the words mean. Some of the words from the story that are included in the glossary are cemetery, federal, honor, soldier, solemn, symbol, and tradition. You might have noticed these words were in bold print throughout the story as we read. And hey, here's that word solemn. We used our context clues to predict that solemn meant sad. And if I look at the definition, I can learn a little bit more. Ooh, we were really close. Solemn means serious and slightly sad. We can find this word on page 12. Remember back before we started reading the story? I asked you to think about what Kyle would learn about the true meaning of the Memorial Day holiday. So what does Kyle learn about the true meaning of Memorial Day? You're right. Kyle learns that Memorial Day is about honoring and remembering the men and women who lost their lives serving our country in the armed forces. Now that you know that, what will you do this Memorial Day to honor and remember those who served for our country? Thanks for reading with me today. Stay safe and see you all next time. Bye.
Hello, Arlington families. Welcome. Earlier, you should have received a book titled Memorial Day in your packet for second graders. If you do not have that book, that is totally fine. You will still be able to participate and engage in the rest of this lesson and have a little fun with some of the activities. On top of learning a little bit more about Memorial Day, you will have the opportunity with your family to create your own monument. I'm Jackie Green. Hello. I'm the resource teacher, the gifted at Randolph Elementary School. And again, I'm very excited that you could join us today. So what is Memorial Day? Let's find out a little bit more. Memorial Day is celebrated to honor and remember all of the men and women who died fighting for our country. It started as a way to remember and honor soldiers who died in the Civil War and was originally called Decoration Day. Many Americans observe Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries or memorials, holding family gatherings, and participating in parades. Today, you will design a monument or memorial. Go ahead and take a look at this memorial of the famous leader in the Civil Rights Movement, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So what is a monument or memorial? You probably have some good ideas. Let's just take another second and think about it. Well, first, a monument is a structure, statue, or building that is built to honor or commemorate someone important or to remember a special event. A memorial is a structure or statue also, but can also be a sculpture or even a park built to remember someone or a group of people that has died to keep those memories alive. So they still honor both people and events, but often it can go a little further in helping us remember specific people or a group of people. So today, during this lesson, and after we are finished, I want you to think a little bit about the critical and creative thinking strategy of fluency, originality, flexibility, and elaboration. You may have heard about this strategy at school or from some previous other videos, but basically what we're asking you to do is for you to come up with lots of ideas. So start thinking maybe about what you might want to do for your monument or memorial. Maybe combine some of the ideas in a new way to come up with a completely new idea. So instead of creating the Washington Monument, which is pictured here, you might create an obelisk or monument to somebody else that's important or to another event that you want to remember. So you're going to make connections between the ideas that we're going to talk about today and then expand on those ideas to come up with your own. And we'll have some tips to help you do that. So here is a picture of the Arlington National Cemetery. Also, to the right of the cemetery is the tomb of the unknown soldier. So this is a memorial to remember those soldiers that have died or have fallen in some battle or war. This is Mount Rushmore. I've been to Mount Rushmore. It's very cool to look at. This monument and memorial features the four faces of U.S. presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. And it's located in Keystone, South Dakota. This memorial tells us the story of birth, growth, development, and preservation of the United States. This one's a little bit different. This one is called the Gateway Arch. It looks like a big arch. Interesting. It was built as a monument to the westward expansion in the United States. So as we were growing as a country and expanding, and more people started heading west in the early years, this is sort of a monument to that idea. This gateway is 630 feet tall, and it's made of stainless steel and is known as the world's tallest man-made arch. Pretty sure most of you are familiar with this monument. This is the Statue of Liberty. It's in New York City. It was given to the U.S. from France as a gift of friendship, but it has come to represent an international symbol of democracy and freedom. Here again, our third president, Thomas Jefferson, and most of you have probably heard or hopefully have seen the memorial, which is in D.C. The Washington Monument, one of our most exciting and gorgeous monuments, also in DC. We're so lucky we have so many memorials and monuments so close to where we live. This monument was built to honor George Washington, America's first president, and stands today as the world's tallest freestanding stone structure. Now it's your turn to create a monument or memorial, and this is something that you can do with your family. So let's talk a little bit about next steps for planning your monument and memorial. Well, before I get through those specific steps on ideas, I wanted to also let you know that you can use whatever materials you want: paper, pens, crayons, stones, sticks. You can build it. You can draw it. It's really up to you. So when you're starting to think about planning, think of someone or several people or an event that you think is important. So some ideas for people or groups of people might include healthcare workers, your family, a grandparent, teachers, famous author, maybe a singer. So again, those are just a few people. You might have some other ideas. What about an event? Something that's happened that's not specific to a person. So it could be, maybe you would like to do a monument to losing your first tooth, or learning to ride your bike, or the birth of a sibling, or reading a new book, favorite author, getting a new pet. Those would be some interesting monuments that you could do to help honor or commemorate those events. If I was going to do a famous author or a favorite author, I would probably do J.K. Rowling from Harry Potter. So decide what kind of structure you would like to build: sculpture, a statue, a bridge, a whole building, a wall, a fountain, or more. Really, this is where you get to think about it and be original and use that strategy of originality and fluency to come up with ideas that people haven't seen before. Think about the materials you want to use. Maybe you're going to use rocks and stack some rocks up right outside your house to build your memorial or monument. Maybe there'll be some water involved, or you're going to use Play-Doh or clay or rocks or wood or paper, maybe some plants. It's really up to your imagination to kind of think about how you want to remember important people or events. Thank you for learning. Please share your ideas with us. And again, we're really excited that you were able to join us, and we hope that you're able to enjoy more and think a little bit more about Memorial Day, which will be coming, and then think about maybe the people and events in your life that you would like to remember as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Fine, and I'm a second grade teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, and I wanted to share some of my favorite choices from the high frequency word choice board. Before we do that, I wanted to dive into what high frequency words are exactly and why it's so important for the students and sometimes adults to be practicing them. So high frequency words are exactly what they sound like. They are words that are used frequently, whether we're reading them in books or in magazines, whether we're using them in conversation, either saying or hearing, as we're writing them down. They're words that are used quite a bit. The tricky thing about high frequency words, however, is that many of them don't follow the same phonics patterns that we use as we're spelling or sounding out words when we're reading or writing. For instance, the word what? We know it, but phonetically, this doesn't make sense. If we take the w part off, that says at. And it is supposed to be what? Usually the sound comes from a U, which is why you might see kids spell what W-U-T so many times. So that can be really tricky. On the other hand, sometimes high-frequency words are words that are spelled phonetically. However, they're part of a homophone set. So homophones are 2 or 3 words that sound the exact same, but have different spellings and different meanings. For example, I, as in myself, and I, like my eyeball. So again, really tricky for kids and sometimes adults as well. So I wanted to share some of my favorite ways from the choice board that we can use to have the kids practice those words and just get them solid in their brains. The first way is by reading the words, and I like to use flashcards because they're a good way to keep track of the ones that you're still working on, and then you can get rid of the ones that you've already mastered. Or by you, I mean the kids. So the first way that I like to use these flashcards is just by reading the words, but not just going through and reading word by word, repeating reading the words, but using different voices. And this allows the kids to get really, really silly. So for instance, I have the word great here. I'm going to practice saying it normally, great. Then I might say it loud like a monster, so great. And then I might whisper it and say great. So by saying the same word over and over and over again in lots of different ways, the kids get that repetition by seeing the word, and then it gets stuck in their brain the way that it looks and the way that it sounds. And also, again, it's just fun. They hear it different ways. They get to be silly. And then they get to practice reading the word. Another favorite way that takes the words off of flashcards and into real-world context is by going on a word hunt. So taking whatever book you might be reading at home, and it doesn't even have to be a book. It could be paying close attention in conversation. It could be reading the captions on the TV as you're watching a movie or a TV show. But finding words that are on their high frequency list. So I would start off with maybe 10 words, and you could either write them down in a notebook. They could have a really special high frequency word notebook where they write their words down, or you could put it up in a big poster on the wall, and every time a kid finds that word, either hearing it or seeing it, they run and they put a check mark next to that word. So it's cool because they get to see the words in context, not just reading them off of a flashcard, but seeing the words being used and finding them that way. My last favorite way that I want to share with you today is really tapping into those homophones, because those are really tricky. I like to use homophone art, which is one of the choices on the board, but my favorite way to use homophone art is to create a book. So with homophone art, you take a couple pairs of those homophones and you make art with them. So that way it allows the kids to get the context of the word. They write it, they have a picture that reminds them of what that one means, and then they can say or write a sentence practicing that homophone. And then they can make a book out of it. Going back to that notebook, you could have one page that has 8 and 8, I and I, 2, 2 and 2, and it allows them to be creative and make something meaningful for them. So those are my favorite ways to use the high frequency word list. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing how you guys are using all of these great resources. Stay safe.
Hello, readers. I'm Miss Rivas. I teach second grade at Claremont Elementary School. Today, we are going to read What's in Washington, D.C.? I know many of you can give me several answers to this question, but we're going to read the book together and hear the answer from Marcy Abov, the author of this book. Let's check it out. What's in Washington, D.C.? A nonfiction book written by Marcy Abov. While we read this book, think, what can people see and do in Washington, D.C.? You'll come across some words that you should know. Capitol, Congress, Court, Dome, Galleries, Justice, Memorials, Monuments, Protests. Here is the table of contents. Washington, D.C. isn't a state or a city. It's a district found between Maryland and Virginia. Do you know? Washington, D.C. is named for George Washington, the first president of the United States. D.C. stands for District of Columbia. Introduction. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America. It has many interesting things to see and learn about. Are you ready to learn about some of them? Government buildings. The White House is the office and home of the U.S. President, the leader of the country. The White House has 132 rooms. It has 6 floors, 32 bathrooms, 412 doors, 147 windows, and 28 fireplaces. The Oval Office has served as the President's main office since 1909. And around 5,000 tourists visit the White House each day. Congress works with the President to make laws. Congress meets in the Capitol building. The Capitol has a domed roof made of iron. The top of the dome is the statue called Freedom. The Statue of Freedom wears a helmet and carries a sword and a shield. Across from the Capitol are buildings that make up part of the Library of Congress. The library has over 164 million items. More than 12,000 books, maps, pictures, and other items are added each day. The books in the Library of Congress line 883 miles of shelves. That's the distance between Washington, D.C. and Florida. Near the Library of Congress buildings sits the Supreme Court building. The Supreme Court is the highest court of law in the country. The art around the building stands for law and justice. The huge metal front doors weigh around 13 tons. Many other government buildings are also in and around the city. The Supreme Court is asked to hear around 10,000 court cases a year. It hears around 80 of those cases. The doors show 8 pictures of justice. The National Mall. The National Mall is a long park that starts at a Capitol building. People sometimes gather there for celebrations or to hold protests or marches. On this picture, we see many people march to show support for African Americans at the Million Man March on October 16, 1995. Many memorials and monuments line the National Mall. The Washington Monument honors George Washington. It is a little over 555 feet tall. It was the tallest building in the world when it opened in 1884. More than 800 steps lead to the top of the Washington Monument. The Lincoln Memorial honors another president, Abraham Lincoln. He was the 16th President of the United States. His memorial has a statue of Lincoln sitting in a chair. It measures 29 feet tall. Other monuments and memorials line the National Mall too. They honor important leaders and people who have fought in wars. The Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial has a large statue of the leader. He helped make laws fair for all people. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial lists the names of more than 50,000 Americans. The men and women gave their lives or went missing during the Vietnam War. More things to see. Washington, D.C. also has many other things to see. The Smithsonian Institution runs museums, gardens, galleries, and the National Zoo. Visitors can touch a rock from the moon at the National Air and Space Museum. They can see dinosaur fossils up close at the National Museum of Natural History. Astronauts brought moon rocks back to Earth from space. Visitors can see giant dinosaur skeletons at the National Museum of Natural History. Museums and galleries show amazing art. The Smithsonian American Art Museum has art from many different American artists. Other galleries show different kinds of art, such as modern, African, and Asian. Visitors at the Smithsonian American Art Museum can see paintings of important Americans, from presidents to inventors. Sometimes visitors can also see special shows. One show included a buffalo hide that visitors could touch. For people who like animals, the National Zoo has more than 1,500 on 163 acres. Visitors can see animals being fed and trained at different times of the day. These are just some of the many things people can see and learn about in Washington, D.C. People can visit any of the Smithsonian Institution museums and galleries, including the National Zoo, for free. What does measure mean? Sometimes it's hard to understand what a measure means. It can help to compare it to something else. Here are some measurements from this book. The doors to the Supreme Court building weigh 13 tons. That's about as much as 2 large elephants. The Washington Monument is 555 feet tall. That's about 1.5 times as long as an American football field. The statue of Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial is 29 feet tall with its base. That's about the same height as a 3-story building. Conclusion. Each year, millions of people visit Washington, D.C. They come to see the amazing sights and learn about U.S. history and government. If you visit Washington, D.C., what do you want to see? Wow! That was a lot of great information. If you're feeling crafty, you can create a poster by choosing one of the places from the book, draw a picture, and let us know all of the facts that you've learned. You can also imagine that you're a tour guide and create an itinerary for your family to explore Washington, D.C. next time you get to visit. I hope you enjoyed the book as much as I did. See you next time!
Hello, and thank you for tuning in today. I'm Amanda Dempsey. I'm the resource teacher for the gifted at Hoffman Boston Elementary School. I'm excited to share another creative thinking strategy with you today. Our text for the day is about a city you may be familiar with. From the second grade packet, we are using What's in Washington, D.C. Let's go over what we read about in this nonfiction text all about the capital of the United States. First, we read about some of the government buildings. We learned that Congress meets in the Capitol building, that the President works and lives in the White House, which has 132 rooms, the Library of Congress, with more than 12,000 books, and even the Supreme Court, the highest court of the law. We also read about the amazing monuments and memorials along the National Mall. There's the Washington Monument, which is 555 feet tall, the Lincoln Memorial, where a 29-foot tall Lincoln is seated. There are many more monuments and memorials that honor important leaders and people who fought in wars. There are many more things to see, like the Smithsonian Institute runs the National Zoo. There's museums such as the Air and Space Museum, the National Museum of Natural History, and the Smithsonian also runs gardens and galleries such as the National Gallery of Art. I learned so much. What can I do with all of this information? I found out there's a lot to see in DC. There's museums, there's important government buildings, and there are memorials and monuments along the National Mall. I've got it. I can organize all that into a mind map. Now you're probably wondering, what's a mind map? A mind map is a way to visually take notes and help me organize the information in unique ways. I start with my topic, for example, things to see in DC. Then I make branches with information on that topic. I may make a subtopic about government buildings and add specific details that branch off from there. I can organize that information by color, and I can even include drawings. This will help me remember everything I learned from the text. So, let's try one together. We're going to start with Washington, D.C., then include the detail of the government buildings. I remember the White House and the Supreme Courts. Do you think you could add another government building or maybe details on the White House or Supreme Court? Now, I'm going to include the monuments and memorials. I remember two. There was the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. Can you add two more? Maybe you know of one that wasn't mentioned in the text. You could always add that too. Now we're going to add museums. I'm going to list the Air and Space Museum. What might you add? Maybe you can even include an image that goes with your information as well. Take a moment and do that now. Do you suppose there's another category we could add? What might the details be? Take a moment and add that to your mind map. What are some other mind maps you might create with your family this week? Perhaps you could create one on your favorite movie. Maybe you could create a mind map all about a character from your favorite book or series. You could even create one on a subject that you really like in school, and then share all the details with your family. Whichever you choose, be creative and have fun with it. Have a great week and enjoy making mind maps. Hopefully I'll see you again next week. Bye.
Hi, Arlington families. My name is Wes Parker, and I'm a second grade teacher here to share a literacy tip for you. Today, I'd like to show you how to make a writer's toolbox at home so that your child has all the tools they need to be a writer. The first thing you're going to need is a box to hold everything. And there's a couple of different options. You can use a plastic crate like this, or if you're like me and you have many shipping boxes coming to you right now, you could just use a cardboard box. I like this idea the best because your child can also decorate the box and really make it their own. So once you have your box, you are going to need writing paper. And you can use anything you have around the house. If you have lined paper and unlined paper, that would be wonderful. I would include both of those. You could even staple some of the paper into booklets for your child like this, so they have some ready-to-go books. But you can also use things like notepads, spiral-bound notebooks, anything you find, maybe even sticky notes like this, or thank you cards, greeting cards, holiday cards that you may have lying around, and envelopes as well. So once you put those in, you're good to go on paper, and then you need to find some writing utensils. I think lots and lots of different options are the way to go for all the different forms of writing that your child might be doing. So pencils, pens, Sharpies, markers, all of those things can go right into the box. And then along with them, I would include erasers and something to sharpen your pencils with. Once you have all of those things inside, you can also think about including some tools that will help your child organize their writing. Many times students like to edit and move things around, and so it's nice if they have scissors, staplers, clips, hole punch, maybe rubber bands to put in your box as well. Once those things are in, you can also think about including art supplies in your writer's toolbox, because in second grade, the illustrations are just as important as the words. So I would suggest definitely crayons. If you have colored pencils or highlighters, those can also be great additions. Here's some more art materials I just found in my home. Glue, very important. Bits of colored paper, tissue paper, old wrapping paper can make excellent additions to illustrations. And even ink pads or stamp pads like this could be great too. So I'm gonna put those inside. Now my box is getting very full, but I do have one more suggestion for the writer's toolbox, and that is some inspiration. You may want to include some favorite storybooks. We call these mentor texts in second grade. These are books the students have read, they love them, they admire them, they look for things in this writing that they could try in their own writing. So I would include a few mentor texts in your writing toolbox. And maybe also some magazines or catalogs. Kids love to cut out the pictures and then write about them, or seeing a picture or reading something in the magazine may spark an idea for a story. So I would include them too. And then the last words that I would give you before I say go off and be a writer would be to create some type of official author sharing time, maybe once a week, maybe every day. Once you have that set, you're ready to go. So enjoy being a writer.
Hi everyone, my name is Miss Berg, and I teach 2nd and 3rd grade at Campbell Elementary. I'm so excited to be here with you today for our At Home with APS math lesson. We have a perfect topic to talk about at home. It's fractions. Fractions are everywhere. So let's explore some in my home and in yours. Let's start off this math lesson with an activity called Which One Doesn't Belong? And in this activity, you're going to look at the pictures of fractions and decide which one you think doesn't belong. And any answer to this is a good answer as long as you can explain your thinking. Some words that might help you explain your thinking are parts, whole, circle, rectangle, half, third, fourth, numerator, or denominator. What are you thinking about which one doesn't belong? Let's go ahead and hear some thoughts from some kids at Campbell.
The bottom right does not belong because all the other shapes are have half of the shape is colored and half of the shape is blank, but this one has more than half, so it does not belong.
I think the top right doesn't belong. All the other things are colored in orange, and that one is colored in blue.
The top left doesn't belong because the other ones are colored too, and the top left is only colored one space.
The learning target for today's lesson is I can name different types of fractions. And fractions come in three main types: fractions of a whole, fractions of a set, and fractions of a length. Before we talk about those, let's talk about some vocabulary first. We need to be able to name the parts of a fraction. The number on the top is called the numerator. And the numerator tells us how many parts we're talking about. I remember the numerator is the one on the top because it starts with N just like the word north. And in second grade, we practice our compass roses in social studies, so I know you're familiar with north being up. The number on the bottom of a fraction tells how many parts of a whole there are, how many equal parts there are. And that's called the denominator. The denominator is the one on the bottom, and I remember that because denominator starts with D, just like down. Let's practice saying these two words. Go ahead and say numerator. You got it. And denominator. Perfect. Let's also talk about some of the words that we can use to name the parts of a fraction depending on how many total equal parts there are in the whole. We might have two parts and call them halves. 3 parts are called thirds. 4 equal parts are called fourths. There are also sixths and eighths. The first type of fractions that we're going to talk about are fractions of a set. And a set is another word for group. So you can see I have a group of pets, and I think that 9 out of 9 of them are adorable. This morning I was working out in my garden, and I'm trying to plant some seeds to grow flowers. I have little pots, and I put seeds in each one, but not all of them sprouted. When seeds sprout, they make a seedling, a little tiny green plant. So the ones with green leaves have sprouted, and the ones without green leaves have not. What fraction of my pots have seeds that sprouted? First, let's think about the numerator. And ask yourself, how many pots have seedlings? You got it! The numerator is 7. 7 of the pots have seeds that sprouted. let's think about the denominator. That means, how many pots are there total? Perfect. The denominator is 8. There are 8 pots total. Since I have 7 out of 8 pots that have seeds that sprouted, I would say this fraction 7/8. Let's do another example of a fraction of a set in my garden. I picked some flowers. When you're out in your garden or in your neighborhood, be sure to ask permission before you pick any flowers. Anyway, here's my set of flowers. Some of them are white and some of them are pink. What fraction of the flowers are pink? First, the numerator. Ask yourself how many flowers are pink. That's right, the numerator is 3. 3 of the flowers are pink. And now for the denominator. How many flowers are in the whole group? You got it! The denominator is 6. So if I wanted to say what fraction of the flowers are pink, I would say that 3 out of 6, or 3/6 of the flowers are pink. Are you ready for a challenge? What if I ask the same question, what fractions of the flowers are pink, but I split the flowers into equal groups? One group has 3 white flowers in it, and the other group has 3 pink flowers in it. I can think about what fraction of the flowers are pink by groups. For my numerator, one group is pink. And for my denominator, there are 2 groups in all. 1 out of 2 groups are pink, so I could say that 1/2 of the flowers are pink. We can also talk about fractions as fractions of a whole. So you can see I have a whole pizza, and I might eat more than 1/8 of that pizza. After I worked in the garden, I was ready for lunch. So I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I cut it into equal pieces. What fractional parts is my sandwich cut into? You got it, they're fourths. And right now, I haven't eaten anything. I still have the whole sandwich left. So I have 4/4 of the sandwich. Whenever we have a numerator and a denominator that are equal, we have one whole. So far, I still have the whole sandwich. But I was hungry, so I ate most of it. There were 4 pieces. I ate 3 of them, and 1 piece is left. I can talk about this picture in 2 different ways. I could ask what fraction of the sandwich got eaten. 3 out of 4 pieces got eaten, so we would say 3/4. But I could also look at this picture and ask what fraction of the sandwich is left. You got it. 1 out of 4 pieces are left, so I would say that 1/4 of my sandwich is left. But I actually was still hungry, so after that, I ate the rest of the sandwich. What fraction of my sandwich is left now? There are 0 out of 4 pieces of my sandwich left, which is equal to none, 0. And I would say I have 0/4 of the sandwich left. None. The third kind of fractions is fractions of a length. So if I were running, I might think about the distance that I'm running and say there's only 1/4 of a mile left to go. After I worked in the garden and had lunch, I took my dog for a walk. And she loves to chase squirrels, so she chased this one up a tree. I can use fractions to answer the question, how far up the tree is the squirrel? Here's the picture of the tree. the squirrel started at the bottom. He could have gone the whole way to the top, but he didn't. He stopped part of the way to the top. Right there. You can't really see him in the picture, but that's about where he stopped. I can use fractions to describe how far up the tree he went. There's a bar model of the whole tree, the length of the whole tree, how tall it is. And that's about how far up the squirrel went. Now, take a look at that blue and white rectangle. I bet you know what fraction that is. You're right, it's 1 out of 2 parts, or 1/2. I can also take that bar model and turn it on its side, and I can use that to help me build a number line representation of my fraction of how far the squirrel went up the tree. There's my number line. I'm going to put marks everywhere a half begins or ends on my bar model, and I'm going to label them. Over here is 0 halves. That's when the squirrel was at the bottom and he hadn't gone anywhere. So far, he's gone 0 halves. Then he saw my dog and he started climbing. He went 1/2 of the way up the tree. He could have kept going and gone the whole way up to the top of the tree, which would have been 2 halves. 2 halves is the same as 1 whole because it has the same numerator and denominator. But he didn't go that whole way. He actually stopped in the middle. So I can say that the squirrel traveled 1/2 of the way up the tree. Let's go back to our learning target and see how we did. Our learning target was I can name different types of fractions. We talked about fractions of a whole, like my sandwich, fractions of a set, like the plants in my garden, and fractions of a length, like the squirrel running up the tree. Today at home, I want you to think about where have you seen fractions around your house or your neighborhood? Talk with someone in your home about the fractions you see. Some words you might use to talk about it are whole, part, group, length, numerator, and denominator. This week, our family math tip is all about the most challenging type of fractions for second graders, and that's fractions on a number line or fractions of a length. But it's a really important skill for children to develop because next year they'll really need to be applying it when they go to read this important tool, a ruler. So, have some tips for helping your child build this understanding. The area model is actually the easiest one for kids to understand. So you can take a plain rectangle, just a strip of paper, and fold it into equal parts to make a fraction. I'm going to do this 1 4/4. So I've got it folded. And once I have this, I can mark it up with the fractional parts. Each section of this is 1/4. And this is very familiar to children. I can use this and translate it into a number line. So I've taken that fraction and I've put a number line underneath with 0 and 1 marked. And I know that traveling from 0 to 1, I can pass 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. And you can mark those on the number line with your child to help them understand fractions of a length. Another tip is you can think about fractions of a length when you are out on a walk or when you're driving in the car from one location to another. So I've done a little map here of traveling from my house to the grocery store. And when I make that trip, I pass the animal shelter along the way. And you can talk to your children about things that you pass along the way to your destination in terms of fractions. So I am going from my home, which is kind of like 0, to the grocery store, which is kind of like 1 whole. When I pass the animal shelter, I'm not the whole way there yet. I'm only part of the way there. And that's what fractions are all about, parts of a whole. So in my case, the animal shelter is about 1/3 of the way. And estimating that fraction with your kids and talking about that is one helpful way to help them build that understanding. A third thing that you can do involves some super fun chalk. So you can make a number line on the sidewalk and break it up into fractional parts. Let me show you. So I've drawn a number line on the sidewalk here with 0 on one end and 1 hole on the other. And I've broken it into fourths and labeled each one. So kids could have fun hopping, skipping, and jumping along the number line and practicing their fractions along the way. Thanks so much for joining me for this math lesson, and we hope to see you back next week for more math at home with APS.
As we end this episode of At Home with APS, we hope that you enjoyed seeing APS teachers and staff bringing literacy instruction into your own home. Maybe you even got to see one of your very own teachers that you worked with during the school year. I'm sure that was really exciting for you. So we invite you, parents and families, to continue to take videos and pictures of how you are engaging in literacy activities while at home. Be sure to tag us on whatever social media outlet you prefer using the hashtag @HomeWithAPS, and we look forward to seeing all the exciting and creative ways APS students and families are engaging with literacy while at home. And who knows, maybe you can make a special guest appearance on At Home with APS. Speaking of which, check out this dedicated APS student as she practices hearing all of the sounds in the word box. Until our next early literacy episode, we ask that you stay safe, stay healthy, Arlington, and we look forward to seeing you again soon for our next edition of At Home with APS.